This is Puzzle Problem Mess, conversations about the media economy and how to think clearly when things get messy. The creator economy once sat a bit off to the side of the media industry, but in 2026, it has emerged as an active hunting ground for media companies, agencies, and investors looking for quicker paths to growth, new audiences, and new forms of monetization. In just the past few months, we've seen activity across almost every part of the creator economy. Agencies buying creator infrastructure, investors taking stakes in creator platforms, media buyers acquiring creator-led communities, and of note, the recent news that CAA is working with TPG-backed integrated media company on a $250 million creator economy holding company. For established media companies, the creator economy is now a key source of operating model speed. It's faster access to audiences, a testing ground for IP, access to personalities with direct relationships, and a testbed for new commercial models. So in this episode, I speak with Chris Erwin, founder and CEO of RockWater, a US-based M&A and strategy advisory firm focused on the creator economy, social media, audio and agency markets. Chris and I discuss the state of the creator market from a media perspective. Who's buying, why they're buying, what a good creator economy acquisition actually looks like, and how legacy media companies buying creator economy assets may in fact be buying their way into a new operating model. Here's Chris. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Well, great to be here, Dan.
You're covering the creator economy from a number of angles on the buy side and sell side, and you have been for a number of years. I'm interested in your headlines or characterizations of the state of deal making in the creator economy.
Yeah, so we wrote about this when we did our 2026 predictions report, where we believe that we are really entering the sophomore year of the creator economy growth cycle. I think what we saw was a lot of excitement into 21, a lot of capital and buyers entering the mix, then a pullback from 22 to 24, and then a resurgence in 25. And it feels like now in 26, the industry is maturing and industrializing. So we're having more capital and more different buyer groups start to enter the mix. We're seeing them have a better, more sophisticated understanding of what KPIs they want and what is their buy box that will inform how deals are going to get done and what they want to lead into. Yeah, we see capital coming from both traditional entertainment publishers and studios, but also digital agencies, SaaS businesses, and even AI companies, right? But we see that there's really starting to be some activity that's concentrating in quote like three main zones. It's obviously a lot more, but we see a lot in one, talent representation, two, digital ad agencies, and three, social publishers. And what's been exciting to see, particularly as an advisor, is, I think previously there was a lot of companies that were tire kicking, trying to figure out their thesis in the space. And now we're actually seeing that companies have developed a thesis, want to do deals, and are getting all the way to the bid stage or actually consummating transactions versus just, hey, we're trying to figure out what we want to do. So I think, actually, to be clear, there are still many companies that are still figuring out their thesis as well.
This uptick in activity has also illustrated that the story of legacy media moving into the creator economy is not a uniform one. Different media companies are entering from different starting points, and they're trying to solve different problems. A publisher looking for audience scale and ad monetization is not thinking in quite the same way as a studio trying to build new IP around creator talent, or an agency trying to reposition itself around creator-led brand marketing. Here's Chris on who's buying and what each type of buyer is looking for. How are you seeing traditional media companies lean into this space? And is there a consistency to their activity and the problems they're trying to solve?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before this chat, and I would say that there's three main buyer archetypes coming from traditional media. So I'd say there's publishers like People Inc. and Future PLC. What they're really buying is audience access and ad capabilities. I think another bucket of traditional entertainment is large studios like Fox. And they're solving problems of how do you work with modern talent And how do you also incubate IP with different unit economics? And then third is ad agencies. I think of like WPP or Publicis, and they're really thinking about creator marketing infrastructure. How do you have modern agency and service capabilities to service, call it the modern brand marketer versus just selling a bunch of linear TV spots?
For media companies buying into the creator economy, there seldom seems to be just one way in. It's less like acquiring a new channel, and it's more like assembling a new operating structure that might include talent relationships, direct-to-consumer capabilities, creator-led IP development, vertical storytelling, audio incubation, live experiences, or brand partnerships and distribution. And for me, Fox is an excellent case study for this multi-front approach, if you like. Across Fox Corporation, Fox Advertising, and Fox Entertainment, the company's made a series of connected creator and creator adjacent moves, buying Red Seat Ventures, investing in The Lighthouse, backing HolyWater, acquiring Meet Cute, creating Fox Creator Studios, and taking an equity stake in Chain, the experiential food business co-founded by BJ Novak. The Chain deal is interesting because although it's not strictly a creator acquisition, it shows how Fox is trying to connect content, talent, fan experience, brand sponsorship, and IP extension. Through Studio Ramsey Global, the partnership envisages food collaborations across live events, digital storytelling, sponsorship, Fox IP integrations, and potentially vertical video through HolyWater. There's a lot more to Fox's activities than just opportunistic deal making. I'll link to these deals in the show notes, but let's get back to Chris. I guess with those archetypes, there's no one purchase that's going to make an inroad, a material inroad for them. It seems like there are a number of purchases that are required.
Yeah, I think that they have a thesis. They are doing deals, they're testing it out, but they're going to learn as they go. So I think of a deal that we advised on. So we advised on the sale of FeedFeed, a social food publisher and creator network that sold to People Inc. last year, right? So People Inc., with their legacy magazine print publisher, have been around for over 100 years. And they have a massive portfolio of, call it like lifestyle, food, and entertainment brands. But how do you reach the modern consumer? It's not just print magazines, it's not just, call it Web 2.0, but on social video and social media platforms. And how do you access these modern networks of creators, which is an incredible way to license UGC content to populate those platforms? And then how do you, what are the new capabilities and services that you can offer your brand marketer clients? And so in buying FeedFeed, they were able to get a team, capabilities, client relationships, and access to a creator network to solve all those problems. And another example was Future PLC buying Sheila, Gen Z publisher in the UK that also came with a sister influencer marketing agency as well. So I would say that's the publisher bucket. Let's continue down to the other two. Think about Fox. I mean, this is a company that's been on, they've been on quite a deal spree, I think, over the last 18 months. I give them a ton of credit because essentially Fox sold their studio business at the peak. They are flush with cash, and they realize that they want to evolve their business, and they're doing it really quickly, and they're taking a lot of bets. So how do you work with modern talent? Red Seat Ventures. So they work with traditional talent personalities and modern creators to build direct-to-consumer social media businesses and monetize them. Thinking about incubating IP, they launched the Fox Creator Network, working with both YouTubers and traditional talent personalities to build new IP. And they also bought, call it an audio drama and audio IP business in EQ. But then they invested in HolyWater, a micro drama platform, another incredible place to incubate IP, where a lot more of the modern consumer is spending time. So it's fun to watch them because they're doing deals, and they're doing smart ones, and they're doing them quickly. And then that third bucket is agencies. So traditional media, like look at Publicis. They bought, I think like 4 or 5 different digital ad agencies in the last 2 years, Captivate, Influential, BR Media Group, and more. And so they're really investing in creator marketing infrastructure to service their marketer clients. So they have access to these massive, probably now millions of creators. They have tons of data about what campaigns work versus not. and they're buying teams and systems to service their brand marketer clients at scale. So those are the three buyer archetypes and some of the deals that they're doing to modernize their business.
What I find really interesting about Fox is not just the number of moves, but the spread of Fox's deals and the way they seem to fortify one another. And Fox is a very clear example of a wider pattern emerging across creator economy M&A in media, which is that some media companies are doing more than buying businesses in the traditional sense, revenues, cash flows, formats, and IP. More than that, they're breathing new life into their operating model. And in many cases, they're buying speed to talent, speed to culture, speed to audience, to new formats, and to new commercial models. Back to Chris on what he thinks is really being acquired in these deals and where the risk sits when legacy buyers try to integrate creator native businesses. You've written, I think, quite recently around what's being bought in many of these cases, when you boil it down, is authenticity and access to authenticity. And you've written that the sort of buyer target cultural fit is where the integration risk is.
Yeah. So just to frame what these companies are actually buying, right? In more mature industries, you can say they're buying cash flows, they're buying revenue. But really in this evolving landscape, they're buying things that are different, right? That's part of the deal, but they're buying time. So they're accelerating their entrance into this new market. So they're buying real capabilities, high quality teams that understand this market. They're buying client relationships and really ways to move faster. Because otherwise it's, try and build these capabilities organically. And you're doing that with a team that just has different muscles and different pedigree that doesn't come from this space. That's just going to take a lot of time. That could take like 3 to 5 years. But if you buy it right, you can get a deal done in 6 months and you are in market faster than your peers figuring it out. So I'd say like that's the real product of what's being bought here. And maybe what you're referencing is like the devil's in the details. But I think protecting the editorial coverage, I think that's true for any media business. It's not just digital, it's not just social. But we just wrote about, I think it's the Overlap that just bought some of Mark Goldberg's YouTube channels. And I think that's key. What's cool about that one, that's a creator business buying another creator business. So that's where when you talk about timeline between the buyer and the seller, I think they can really align quickly on how do you grow this business? What's the right way to service it? How do you bring new growth ideas to the table and move really quickly? They're going to be able to do that faster than like a traditional media business buying a social business for the first time. But to your point, I think that like those businesses, those YouTube channels between buyer and seller, it's a lot of fan reaction content, community content, and that's preserving that sensibility is really key. And I think right now, we will just have to watch and observe over the next 6 to 12 months. If they can maintain that editorial sensibility, I think they can grow those businesses really well. But if they start to play with that, that's where there could be challenges.
All of this brings us to the buyer's approach. If media companies are buying time, access, capability, and a kind of cultural fluency, then the way they go about buying really matters. Move too slowly and the market runs away from you. Move too hastily and you might overpay for something shiny that's not durable. And after the deal closes, if you impose too much of your company's process, you might snuff out the flame of the very thing you acquired. But if you're too hands off, the business fundamentals may start to slide. I asked Chris what good acquirers do differently and what kind of buyer behavior tends to lead to better outcomes. Just turning to the buy side a bit here, you're profiling terrifically all the activity going on, and you're really building a profile of different types of buyers and what buyers do with the companies they acquire. Is there anything you can say around what sort of buyer behavior or buyer posture is likely to lead to good outcomes versus buyer posture or buyer activity that probably doesn't get the best value out of their acquisitions?
Yeah. So here's the important things to keep in mind for a buyer when looking at these types of deals and these types of assets. Is one, you're still buying a business. So focus on fundamentals. If you're trying to come up with these like really esoteric KPIs, it's just, you got to look at revenue, profit, margins, defensibility, right? Those things still matter. They're part of the conversation. I think two is having a real thesis in the space. So if you don't have a point of view of what your goal is and what you're trying to solve for, and you can't lay out a clear vision to a seller, then it's going to be one, it's going to be hard to align and hard to get bought in on the sales, call it on the acquisition process and stand out from the other buyers. And then if you do the deal and you don't have an aligned vision, it's not going to be a good place to be. And then I think lastly is being flexible and open-minded that these deals, I started my career in Wall Street, very traditional formal processes, two-step M&A auctions, buyer never talks to seller direct without the banker present. Deal making in the modern creator space is a lot more informal. It's faster, buyers and sellers talk more. But all that being said, I think the space needs to add a bit more rigor, which is what we bring to the mix. So yeah, I think like lastly, for buyers, like what's going to win? Fortune favors the bull. If you're just going to be tire kicking and doing diligence and research for many years, like I get it. You want to be informed and then you want to have a calculated approach. But there's companies that are doing deals right now, like Fox, like the publishers we talked about, like People Inc. They're making bets. They're being capital smart, but they're being forward thinking. And so there's a point where it's like, got to stop tire kicking, start making moves.
Finally, I asked Chris the question I often ask guests on this podcast. In a media market this messy, what advice would he give to people trying to build a career inside it? Great, Chris. You've traversed big media early on in your career at Big Frame, which was acquired by Awesomeness and DreamWorks. And then some years later, Awesomeness went on to find a home at Paramount Global. What would your advice be for people making their careers in media today?
Yeah, I think it's find a leadership team that you believe in. I think some of the best things that have happened to me early in my career is finding leadership and mentors that I believe could build a great business, that cared about the team, that cared about me, that cared about my learning. And that has transformed my potential. And I wouldn't be here today were it not for that. I think a second thing is, it's very easy to tell people, follow your heart, go and do what you love. I think, part of that is true, where you can go and find a media brand that you really align with or, a business that you like, try and get involved. But I would actually recommend that people really focus on how do you up level your skills of what you're good at. Don't try and go from bad to good. If you're good at something, even if it's not your first passion, how can you become great at it? Because I think there's incredible fulfillment and incredible power in going from good to great. And that creates a lot of opportunities. And it may surprise you. That's my recommendation.
Chris Erwin, thank you very much for your time and insight on the call this morning.
Welcome, Dan. This was a fun one.
That was Chris Erwin. Thanks for listening. I'm Dan Fay. Original music by Lee Rosevere, Mystery Mammal, and SoCal. And if you like this episode, please do share this with a friend or colleague.
I kept on turning questions, hoping they go away. It left as a mess, scattered memories.